2 months after 9/11, a plane takes off from New York's JFK Airport. But within seconds, the aircraft is in trouble.
What the hell are we into?
On the ground, New Yorkers witness the terrifying sight.
This big shadow came over the house.
As the pilot struggles at the controls, the aircraft is torn apart. Within seconds, the plane plummets to Earth, smashing into a once peaceful suburb, and 265 people lose their lives.
Bodies everywhere.
Terrorism, design failure, human error. The tragedy that occurred on Flight 587 will spark one of the most baffling and far-reaching crash investigations.
This has never, ever happened before.
Now, using advanced computer simulation, we reveal exactly what happened to cause the plane crash in Queens. Disasters don't just happen. They're triggered by a chain of critical events. Unravel the clues and count down those final seconds from disaster. September 11th, 2001. Months later, it seems to be happening all over again.
The engine fall down and the belly fall.
The United States, New York, Queens, November 12th, 2001. 6:30 a.m. JFK Airport is on high alert. The atrocity of 9/11 is still fresh in the minds of Americans, and for everyone in the airline industry, security is a major concern. On the tarmac, the crew of American Airlines Flight 587 prepares for a 3.5-hour flight to the Dominican Republic. Captain Ed States, the senior pilot, and his first officer, Sten Mullen, carefully check the exterior of their aircraft. The son of a pilot, Mullen has 10 years' experience with the company, having joined American Airlines at the age of just 24. Like his father, Sten sees it as his dream job.
If he wasn't a pilot, he doesn't know what he would be doing because it was that important. He loved his job.
Traveling to the Dominican Republic this morning are 251 passengers. Among them, 83-year-old Hipólito Algaroba and his 73-year-old wife, Ubencia. The elderly couple are returning to their homeland for their twilight years and expect their son Hector to show up and see them off.
They're going home for good because they have raised 3 kids and their job is done.
The couple has arrived well before their scheduled departure time, so the airline offers them seats on an earlier flight, Flight 587. By the time Hector gets to the airport, his parents have already checked in, but his mother comes back from the gate to say goodbye to her son.
How's that? I asked about my father and she said that he's fine.
Okay, I'm on.
Police Chief Michael Morley and his...
And I gave her another kiss. I guess that was the kiss for my father.
At 7 a.m., Ed States and Sten Mullen begin pre-flight checks. The airplane is an Airbus A300-605R, capable of carrying up to 266 people. It is one of the oldest in the American Airlines fleet and has racked up over 37. Mark is at home. He's taking their 15-year-old. Even so, the Airbus is recognized as one of the most reliable airliners in service. By 9 a.m., all 251 passengers are on board.
I'll program the computer.
Pre-flight checks are complete.
Clear right, clear left.
Flight 587 taxis to runway 31 left. Sten Molen, the co-pilot, will fly the plane on the flight's first leg. 9:11 a.m. A Japan Airlines 747 just ahead of Flight 587 is cleared for takeoff. The controller gives Molen and states a routine warning. There's a risk of air turbulence from the Japanese plane ahead.
Clear for takeoff. American 587 Heavy.
Captain States has to keep a safe distance between himself and the Japanese airliner. Every plane creates a wake of turbulent air as it takes off, which can affect following flights.
You happy with that distance? We'll be all right once we get rolling. So you're happy?
Their flight path will take them across Jamaica Bay and over the Rockaway Peninsula into the borough of Queens. It's a popular residential area, especially with New York's fire and police departments. Today is Veterans Day, but not everyone has the day off.
Okay, I'm on.
Police Chief Michael Morley and his wife will be working. His mother-in-law is looking after their 2-year-old son, Michael Jr.
It was just another day. I just had spent about the first week of not doing 12-hour days going down to the World Trade Center. Now, a week later, they started trying to get the police department to get back to normal.
Michael Morley's next-door neighbor is Lois Shore, a financial controller for a lighting company. Because it's a holiday, her husband Mark is at home. He's taking their 15-year-old son Jason to the doctor, if he can get him out of bed.
I say, like, what are you doing in bed? And like any other teenager, he gives me that answer. I said, come on, it's time to get up, we gotta go.
9:14. Sten Molen starts the takeoff run.
Rotate.
9:14 and 29 seconds. Flight 587 is airborne. His attention is drawn to a plane making... Ground control at JFK wishes them well and instructs Molen and States to contact New York departure. 9:15. Flight 587 is now at 1,700 feet. The departure controller gives them a navigation fix.
Yellow American 587 Heavy, turn left, proceed direct wavy. We'll turn direct wavy. American 587 Heavy.
One second later, the plane begins to shake. The pilots know the turbulence is likely to have come from the Japan Airlines Jumbo up ahead. It's a routine hazard, and Molen flies through it.
250, thank you.
The captain increases the speed of the plane to approximately 287 miles per hour, the maximum allowable at that altitude. But seconds later, the plane hits more turbulence. Sten Molen uses his foot controls and applies the rudder first to the right and then to the left to try to stabilize the plane.
Max power.
Again, Molen asks for more power to keep the aircraft under control.
You all right? Yeah, I'm fine. Hang on to it. Hang on to it. Full power, please. Holy!
Less than 2 minutes into their journey, Flight 587 is in deep trouble. The lives of 261 people in the air and many more below are in mortal danger. "89 seconds after takeoff, Flight 587 is in trouble. In the cockpit, co-pilot Sten Molen fights the controls.
What are we into? I'm stuck in it! Get out of it! Get out of it!
Far below, 53-year-old Pete Hayden, Deputy Chief of the New York Fire Department, is taking his first day off since September 11th. His attention is drawn to
The airplane. It's struggling. I look up. It's lower in the sky than normal. I'm watching it, and the plane suddenly begins to break apart.
Holy!
I see the back part of the plane behind the left wing break open, Smoke and flames come out.
As the plane spins out of control, the engines slice off. Mark Shore, still trying to wake his son, also hears the plane.
And I think that it sounds just like the Concorde.
Come on, Jason. Now you have a doctor's appointment today. Come on, get up.
The house starts to shake. Pete Hayden watches in disbelief. At 9:16 and 15 seconds, Flight 587 crashes into the ground. At 9:20 a.m., a pilot who has seen the crash alerts air traffic control at JFK.
Yeah, look at the south of the aircraft crashing.
An aircraft crashed south of the field.
Accept fireball.
Controllers see a black cloud of smoke over the suburb of Rockaway. On the ground, an amateur cameraman captures the scene.
Plane crashed. Where? To the houses.
Houses are crushed and burning. Aircraft parts are everywhere. The whole neighborhood seems to be under attack. One of the first at the scene is Deputy Fire Chief Pete Hayden.
There are bodies everywhere. All over the streets, in the yards. Some victims still strapped into the...
Residents are in a state of shock.
The engine fall down and the belly fall. The piston left side and make it flat all the way down.
Emergency services race to Rockaway. Among them, Police Inspector Michael Morley, who is horrified to hear the plane has crashed close to his home. His first thoughts are about his son and his mother-in-law.
I know my son is at home. I know my mother-in-law's in the house. So I'm panicking like every other father. You know, I'm thinking, oh my God, what if my kid's killed? What if, I don't know what's going on with my family.
Michael Morley's next-door neighbor, Lois Shore, is traveling to work when she gets a call from her husband, Mark.
What's gone? The house? He's screaming hysterically. The house is burning down. So I just totally freak out, and I'm trying to scream, where's Jason? What's happening? But we get disconnected at this moment.
Lois heads home. News of the disaster spreads across the city.
Roger, I'll have to cut you off. Crash in Queens.
Hector Algaroba is having breakfast in a diner, having left his parents at the airport.
The word that we have is that it is an American Airlines jet.
He's not sure which flight his parents caught. Hundreds of firefighters are now fighting the blaze. Mayor Giuliani arrives to see the damage for himself.
We'll do everything we can to help these people, everything. And the president is on top of it. They're alert. They're watching everything else all over the country, so I think people should remain absolutely calm.
But New Yorkers believe they're being attacked again. The city is gridlocked. The Empire State Building is evacuated. The United Nations is in partial lockdown. Americans fear their worst nightmare is unfolding once more. American Airlines Flight 587 has crashed into a quiet neighborhood in Queens, New York. And no one can be sure just how many people were killed on the ground. The plane has crushed 4 houses at the intersection of Newport Avenue and Beach 131st Street. Across the road, 5 more houses are in flames. One of these belongs to Police Inspector Michael Morley. When he arrives at the scene, there's no sign of his son or his mother-in-law. 2 of his own officers are waiting for him.
Anybody left inside?
My mother-in-law was babysitting Mikey.
Because I said, my son's in the house. And they said, we looked, there's nobody in there. They thought that maybe I was in there sleeping also. So I said, well, did you look good? And they said, yeah.
As rescue vehicles race to the scene, roads into Rockaway are gridlocked. Lois Shore battles to get back to her family and home.
I had no idea what I was going to find or what had happened, but I was thinking that I just have to get to my house. I have to get to my house.
Michael Morley, his loved ones are lost in the heart. He's also the officer in charge of the scene.
I'm just a regular guy, and all of a sudden you're the highest ranking police officer on the scene of a major catastrophe like this. I knew in a little while the whole police department's going to start responding and everybody's going to come and be helping out. But for right now, I'm in charge. What do you do?
Frantic to find her son, Lois Shore abandons her car. She runs towards her burning house until she comes to a police barricade.
That's my house! I gotta get in there! I gotta... 4 policemen I remember holding me back, and I was screaming, let me go, my son is in the house, let me go. No, my son is in there, my son is in there too! Please let me through!
Michael Morley still has no idea what has happened to his own family. When senior police chiefs arrive, they hear his son and mother-in-law are missing.
And one of the chiefs says, hey, Mike, what are you still doing here? I said, I'm just trying to help out, boss. And he says, get out of here, go find your family. I said, all right.
More and more people, anxious for information, arrive at the scene of the tragedy. Among them, Hector Algaroba. He believes his parents were on the plane, but is praying for a miracle.
The hope was somehow all the smoke and all the fire that I'm seeing is from some sort of impact of the plane trying to land. And there has been a lot of people that survived. I'm trying to cling to whatever hope, because the last thing a human being loses in life is hope.
Lois Shore is still looking for her family.
I'm running to see if Jason is alive, and I feel unreal. All I see ahead of me is smoke.
Michael Morley races from house to house, hoping his loved ones are at a neighbor's.
Anybody who's a parent, you lose your kid in a Kmart or a Walmart or something like that. Sweating, you're getting nervous, and you don't want to think the worst, but you can't think of it, and then just magnify that by 100 times because a plane crash just was right on your house.
Jason, answer me, Mark!
Then, Lois Shore hears the shout she's longing for.
And I looked, and that's when I saw Jason and Mark.
Lois! Lois, we're over here!
Once I saw him alive, that was, at that moment, that was all that I really cared about. Nothing else really mattered. Oh my God, are you okay? Oh, Jason!
Jason and his father are alive and well. They got out of the house with seconds to spare.
Oh my God, thank God! Oh my God!
Michael Morley is still searching when a neighbor calls him over.
Hey, Mike, get over here! God, they're right there! They're right there!
I saw him. It was a fantastic feeling because 2 seconds earlier, I'm starting to panic, thinking maybe they really were dead, and you turn around and there they were. My son was crying when he saw me, and you get worked up when your son's crying, and like my eyes started getting wet. So I just held him for about 5 minutes.
But for each moment of joy, there are 100 of despair. Stan Molen, father of the co-pilot, gets a phone call with the news.
Until that call came in, you can sort of, hope that it was a different airplane. But that was oh no, this can't be moment.
In the Dominican Republic, relatives expecting a family reunion at the Santo Domingo airport are suddenly confronted with the news. Their loved ones are dead. Hector can't leave until he knows what happened to his parents. With the fire under control, the body count and identification of victims is underway. Mayor Giuliani holds a press conference.
We have so far recovered 132 bodies. And as the governor said, there were 255 people and crew members that were listed on the manifest. And I want to again express my sympathy and condolences to everyone involved.
After the announcement, Giuliani meets the bereaved families and personally gives Hector the news he's dreading.
He hugged me and gave me his condolences by telling me that my parents were on that flight.
It is just 2 months and 1 day since 9/11. The worst terrorist attack on U.S. soil are striking. Americans turn to the White House for answers.
We sent our FEMA teams over, the FBI is over there, and this investigation is being led by the National Transportation Safety Board to make sure that the facts are fully known to the American people.
How did Flight 587 end in catastrophe? Why did one of the most reliable airplanes in service break up in mid-air and crash in a residential suburb? Now, by going deep into the investigation, we can reveal the facts behind one of the worst aviation disasters in U.S. history. Air industry. Less than an hour after the crash, 21 NTSB officials, the GO team as they're called, are on their way. The man in charge is Bob Benson, a veteran investigator who has handled 94 major air disasters, including the 1988 Lockerbie bombing over Scotland. But not even Lockerbie can prepare him for pressure like this.
It was particularly important for us to get this one right the first time. There was no payback in changing our minds or anything like that.
For Benson, the early hours of an investigation are his team starts gathering evidence at the crash site, a dangerous and distressing business.
From a personal standpoint, I'll take deserts, I'll take cornfields, I'll take mountaintops, I'll take swamps before I'll ever investigate accidents in cities.
Potentially crucial clues also come from the surrounding area and from eyewitnesses who saw the plane break up in flight.
And then the whole plane shook and the tail came apart. That's all I saw, and then it, boom.
Both engines landed about 800 feet away from where the plane hit. By plotting exactly where the debris landed, investigators should be able to determine the breakup sequence. The debris is scattered everywhere. Police and army boats are called in to gather parts from Jamaica Bay. Then, a major discovery for Benson as he drives along the coast road. The plane's tail fin is found in the bay.
That really got our attention.
The tail fin is an essential component of the aircraft. Without the fin was found floating in the water a little more than half a mile behind the main crash site. This tells investigators that it must have been one of the first parts to break away. It could be at the very heart of the accident. But what could have caused such a catastrophic failure? For a tail to fall off a plane is virtually unprecedented. Of the hundreds of eyewitnesses who saw the crash, there is no doubt this was a bomb.
And I saw an explosion in the sky, and I saw the plane. It looked like one of its wings fell off.
Just aiming for the ground, and I felt an impact, and then I saw smoke.
And my neighbor was yelling, take cover, and I really thought, this is it, they've started bombing now.
Even for a trained investigator, it's difficult not to jump to conclusions.
Hang on to it. Hang on to it.
Crash of Flight 587 into the New York borough of Queens. FBI forensics experts are searching for evidence of a bomb. They also need to find two other key pieces of evidence: the plane's black boxes. The cockpit voice recorder should have recorded everything that was said by the pilots. The flight data recorder could tell them exactly how the plane performed throughout the flight. Each of the black boxes might unlock the mystery of the crash, but lead investigator Bob Benson knows finding either of them is likely to take days. Even then, they could be badly damaged. But just hours into the search, an amazing stroke of luck. Marion Blakey, spokeswoman for the NTSB, makes an announcement.
Cockpit voice recorder.
By now, there's a frenzy of speculation over the incident. Terrorism is foremost in people's minds. But for Benson and the NTSB, the lack of corroborating evidence to support the theory is troubling. There is no sign of suspicious activity at the airport, and no group has stepped forward to claim responsibility for the crash. They take a calculated risk and announce that even at this early stage, they don't believe it was a deliberate act.
It is the case that the National Transportation Safety Board is that this is an accident.
The plan backfires. Suspicious New Yorkers wonder if this is a cover-up. The NTSB takes steps to reassure the public.
Should there be any indications of criminal as soon as we are aware of that, and the investigation would change at that point appropriately.
Finding the cockpit voice recorder is a huge step forward. With one of the black boxes and the tail fin in their possession, hopes are high they will be able to piece together the reasons for the crash. Although the recorder is damaged, the tape is still intact and is rushed to NTSB headquarters in Washington. Away from the glare of the media, investigators start to analyze the final moments of the flight.
Let's go for power, please.
Every word, every sound is carefully analyzed. 89 seconds into the flight comes a chilling sound on the tape. There's a loud bang. Immediately afterwards, the crew can be heard struggling with the controls.
You all right? Yeah, I'm fine. Hang on to it. Hang on to it.
Could this bang be the sound of an explosion? Maybe there was a bomb after all. With the flight data recorder still missing in the smoking wreckage, Benson knows that the truth will be hard to uncover.
More speculative and more difficult.
For 2 days, investigators hunt through mountains of debris for the vital recorder. But instead of where they're looking, the next lead comes a pair of security cameras on the Triborough Bridge captured the last moments of the aircraft. These tapes could hold the key to the disaster. In the grainy footage, the Airbus is just a black dot. On one camera, the dot disappears behind a building. Then the second camera picks it up. It shows what could be a crucial moment. A faint white streak trailing behind the aircraft. Is this the explosion seen by so many eyewitnesses? Is this the cause of the sound? Is this why the pilot lost control? This could prove that there was a bomb after all. The only way to find out is to compare the time. If the white streak happened at the same time as the bang captured by the voice recorder, the two are likely to be the same event. Investigators visit the site of the toll booth cameras. Using buildings as reference points, they work out exactly where and when the streak occurred. The results back up their theory that this was not a bomb.
We can see that the streak began 8 seconds after the initiating accident sequence.
The calculations show the streak occurred after the bang on the recorder. The flash is probably fuel escaping as the plane breaks up. This can't be the cause of the accident, although it could be the reason so many people thought they saw an explosion. Then a dramatic development back at the crash site. Investigators get the news they've been waiting to hear. Searchers have recovered the flight data recorder. But the relief is short-lived. The black box is damaged. The NTSB sends it back to the manufacturers to see what, if anything, can be retrieved. Now the tail fin that was found floating in Jamaica Bay is starting to yield vital clues. The fin is built from a high-tech material called reinforced carbon fiber composite. Often used in racing cars and sports equipment, composites consist of layers of carbon fibers bound tightly together with resin. The A300 was one of the earliest civil aircraft to feature this high-strength material, and it's used in many areas of the plane. But when investigators look closely, they're alarmed by what they see. There are 6 main attaching points connecting the tail to the fuselage. All 6 are broken. There has never been a plane crash caused by a composite failure, but Benson can't rule out anything.
You have to imagine a force large enough to break 6 attaching points made out of one of the strongest materials in the world. 6 of these holding the vertical stabilizer on, and all of them broke. So the forces had to be just tremendous.
The details of the failure worries the team. Plans show how each of the 6 attaching points has 2 lugs. One made from aluminum, the other from composites connected by a titanium bolt. The damage shows that the metal lugs and the bolts remained intact, but the composite lugs all failed. Benson considers the prospect that the composite material itself may be faulty. With 240 similar planes still in service and thousands more using similar technology, it would have huge implications throughout the aviation industry. Proving that the carbon fiber is to blame will require hard physical evidence. Benson dispatches the stabilizer to specialist labs at NASA to see if they can detect any weakness. Using scanning electron microscopes, experts check over 465 square inches of surface, magnifying the material up to 5,000 times as they search for any imperfection. After hundreds of hours of work studying Airbus design and construction methods, NASA and NTSB scientists finally give the plane a clean bill of health. They can't find anything wrong with the aircraft or the materials used to build it. While the news is welcome, it only deepens the mystery.
Although we were relieved in that aspect, why the vertical stabilizer really came off.
Then, just as the investigation seems to have stalled, a new discovery. Information from the damaged flight data recorder has at last been retrieved.
I was very, very relieved.
But no one is prepared for the startling picture that the flight data recorder will give. The focus of the entire investigation suddenly shifts from the machine to the man flying it, co-pilot Sten Molen. 83 seconds after takeoff, Molen applies 5 extreme movements to the rudder, causing the plane to lurch violently from side to side. the plane slips sideways to its direction of travel, first one way and then the other.
I've looked at a lot of flight data readouts in my time. I've never, ever seen that particular type of activity occur.
Traveling at nearly 292 miles per hour, the aerodynamic stresses on the 130-ton Airbus would have been extraordinary.
They were virtually unprecedented to us. We were amazed.
On the fifth movement of the rudder, the entire tail fin breaks off. The implication is extraordinary. Just by manipulating the controls, the pilot broke the aircraft. American Airlines is also amazed at the news.
Even the very experienced pilots at American Airlines, they were floored by this information.
The NTSB takes immediate action. On February 8, 2002, they issue a special warning to all pilots. Benson now faces a new mystery. Why did the pilot act this way?
The focus of the investigation turned to the first officer and why he would manipulate the rudder as he did.
Benson sets up a special team to look into the performance of the man flying the plane, Sten Molen. They speak to American Airlines pilots who have flown with him, and they discover disturbing information about the airline's flight training program. The final twist in the investigation of Flight 587 will shake the aviation industry to its core. Investigators are close to uncovering the cause of the tragic crash of Flight 587. They know that pilots rarely use the rudder in flight, but the flight data recorder shows that the co-pilot, Sten Molen, applied 5 rapid inputs to the aircraft's rudder pedals. This could have overstressed the tail fin and broke it off. Why did he use the rudder in this way? They listen to the cockpit voice recorder again.
We're supposed to be 5 miles by the time we're airborne.
One possible theory is wake turbulence. Wake turbulence is all too familiar to accident investigators. It's a region of spinning air left behind a plane. These vortices can sometimes completely rotate another plane following behind. But the team quickly realizes that this can't be the cause of the crash. The turbulence wasn't strong enough to seriously affect a plane the size of the Airbus. Then comes evidence which changes everything. The investigation team interviews Molen's friends and colleagues and discovers a vital piece of information. A pilot and former colleague recalls an earlier trip with Molen. During an encounter with turbulence, he used the rudder aggressively, even though there was no apparent risk to the plane. The evidence is conclusive. Molen had reacted in the same way before.
When those pilots came forward and told us about the first officer's propensity to overreact on the rudders, that was a eureka moment for us.
But the revelations don't stop there. When questioned at the time, Molen said he had been trained to use the rudder in this way for Benson and the team. With 712 American Airlines planes in service, Benson has to establish the truth. The airline confirms that one of their programs does teach pilots to use the rudder to recover from unusual situations, as seen in this training video.
And if you don't put that rudder in, what's going to happen? When you get to this portion of the roll, she's going to slice out just like that.
Next, Benson looks at the other tools used to train the pilots, particularly the high-tech flight simulators. Here, pilots learn to react to a range of emergencies, including wake turbulence. In one scenario, Benson discovers that the pilots are taught to use the rudder very aggressively. The flight simulator program had even been altered to encourage the use of the rudder, especially when the plane was banking to the right or the left. Airbus had already written to the airline, concerned about this practice.
The classroom work told pilots that it was permissible to use the rudder to escape from unusual attitude situations, and perhaps more importantly in the simulator, they were taught to use the rudder very, very aggressively to recover.
The finding causes controversy. At a public hearing, American Airlines claims that Airbus never explained the limitations of the rudder.
I didn't know you couldn't do that. You couldn't do what? Be aggressive with the controls.
The airline also claims that the rudder system on the aircraft was very sensitive and that pilots might not be aware of how much rudder they were really applying. The NTSB investigates and discovers the rudder control system is highly sensitive. What's more, the controls of the plane become more sensitive as the plane's speed increases. On the ground, the rudder pedal has to be depressed by about 4 inches to get maximum deflection. But when flying at high speed, that distance is reduced to just about 1.5 inches. NTSB officials are shocked that this system isn't explained in instruction manuals.
There was an apparent gap between what the manufacturers knew about the rudder sensitivity of the airplane and what was filtering down to the
Now Benson and his team know exactly what happened to Flight 587. Step by step, they piece together the key events that led to the tragedy. 5 minutes to disaster. Flight 587 awaits clearance for takeoff as the Japan Airlines 747 takes off. 30 seconds later, Flight 587 is given a warning of wake turbulence. 2 minutes to disaster. Flight 587 takes off.
Positive right, gear up please.
One minute to disaster. Flight 587 encounters turbulence for the first time. Sten Moulin flies through it. 30 seconds to disaster. Flight 587 hits a second, larger wave of turbulence, and the plane banks to the left, reminding Moulin of the simulator. Realizing the sensitivity of the rudder system in flight, Moulin stamps on the pedal, causing maximum rudder deflection. The plane swings violently to the right, placing enormous loads on the tail fin. Moulin thinks that the plane is reacting to the wake turbulence. He doesn't realize that his own use of the rudder causes the violent movement. Moulin immediately slams the rudder pedal in the opposite position. The plane now swings violently back to the left, placing another enormous load on the tail. Both Moulin and States believe the plane is somehow caught in the turbulence.
What the hell are we into? I'm stuck in it! Get out of it!
And in an attempt to get control, Moulin applies another rudder input, this time to the right. Now thoroughly disoriented, Moulin again applies full rudder, and Flight 587 is now on the brink of disaster. Finally, on the 5th rudder input, all 6 lugs connecting the tail to the fuselage tear apart. The plane is doomed. Terrified passengers and crew can have no idea what's happening. Huge G-forces rip both engines away. 106 seconds after takeoff, Flight 587 falls from the sky. 265 people are dead. Important lessons have been learned from the tragedy. Airbus has issued